One of the things that I talk about frequently is variability in shooting. So there's a belief that every shooter, every great shooter, reduces their variability and shoots the exact same shot from repetition to repetition. Instead, I suggest that there's variability from shot to shot. And so one of the ideas based on the models of Franz Bosch with attractors and fluctuators is the idea that we need to think about what variability is good and what variability is bad, or what are the attractors in a shot that should be consistent from shot to shot, and what are the fluctuators in a shot that can vary from shot to shot without affecting the ultimate performance. So I just read an article about free throw shooting, and one of the things that it found was the important attractor in their study was looking at the timing between the peak velocity of their center of mass and the release of the ball, and also the speed, I believe the peak velocity of the center of mass just in and of itself. And so the better shooters tended to essentially come up slower than the not as good shooters, but their synchronicity, or their timing between the release of the ball and their peak velocity of their center of mass was closer together, whereas there was a greater variance and a greater disparity between the two on the poor free throw shooters. So being able to synchronize the movement and coordinate the movement with the release of the ball with the center of mass, reaching its peak velocity is one of the attractors in their study, and also having more postural control or a slower ascension of the center of mass was also found to be kind of an attractor in that study, whereas other things were less important. One of the other things that this study found that tends to run counter to what a lot of coaches teach on both sides is the best shooters shot, I believe, with an angle of release of about 49 to 50%, and the worst shooters shot with the highest angle of release, I believe, above 52 or 53%, and the good shooters, so the kind of the middle group, was actually closer to 45, 46%, which I know some coaches really emphasize shooting the ball higher and higher, and above 50 degrees on the angle of release, and I know some are adamant that the perfect angle of release is 45 degrees. And so this one kind of found that it's better to be somewhere between 45 and 50 degrees as opposed to above 50 degrees or below 45 degrees. So I think three interesting points is one, having that stability as you're shooting, and not having a lot of the movements being too fast or too herky-jerky, but having a good stable base to start your shot. Being able to time the release with your upward movement and the synchronicity that happens between those two is very important. And then having that angle of release somewhere between 45 and 50 degrees probably gives you the best opportunity to make the shot. And again, these were based on free throws. So there's probably some slight differences when we're talking about a shot on the court, potentially against defense or with movement, or further from the basket. There could be other variables in play, but for free throws, especially the timing between your upward movement and the release of the ball, and then that angle of release somewhere between 45 and 50 degrees seems to be the factors that determine whether you're a good shooter or an excellent shooter or a not so good shooter.